Hello, this is Tom, aka Gedeon here for Star Frontiers Gamer and Tabletop Tap Room. And following, just trying to keep up with stuff, and was watching a video by the OG GM, and apparently he's been he's getting trolled, and we all get trolls. We all deal with trolls from time to time. But he's getting trolled over what's canon in D&D. And so he made this interesting statement that I absolutely found funny. So he said this clip. He said this statement. It just got me laughing. In his video.
Whatever home rules you have, as long as they're not bothering anybody else or violating any laws, Hasbro Police is not going to show up at your front door, kick open your door, and go, "Bitch, on the ground, you're playing D&D wrong."
So, I guess the controversy is that somebody at Wizards of the Coast made a statement saying that everything after 2014 is canon. Some people are misstruing that to say whatever has come about since 2014 is canon in D&D, like troll doll movie, anything, friend, and they're misconstruing it, and so he's been fighting this battle over it. It was kind of funny, but it got me thinking about what is canon in Star Frontiers. And, that's an interesting question, because Wizards of the Coast has, for the most part, ignored Star Frontiers since they purchased TSR Inc. and then they own it. They allowed the fans to have great liberties throughout the early 2000s up until 2018, when Evil Hat was making a play to scoop up the trademark, and so then they put everything back in publication. Evil Hat said, we're not getting involved in a legal fight. It's going to cost us too much money," and they backed off. And so other than putting everything back in publication, other than the licensed Star Frontiers modules, 2001 and 2010, base Star Frontiers modules based on the 2001 Space Odyssey movie and 2010 sequel, everything's back in print. And, so they've largely ignored it. So you have a company that really doesn't manage their IP, doesn't seem to care about it, other than nobody's going to take it away. We'll continue selling it on one bookshelf for whatever money comes in. So what is canon? You could go with the, strictly the original rules, Alpha Dawn, the Nighthawks game, and stick with just these. You could say the modules, the modules are canon, and a lot of them. This would be an important piece of canon, is the referee's screen. It's got a mini module. There's actually substantial pieces of information in here. It should be treated as canon. If you're going to treat the rest of the modules as canon, then you get into the problem things where you have a half-baked second edition of the game that's incomplete, that causes a lot of problems because the Kim Eastland wanted to change Star Frontiers and take it in the new direction. He admitted that at the telephone conference interview he gave at SciCon, the SciCon convention. So, and he was very open about it. He hated Nighthawks. He didn't like how Star Frontiers was set up. He wanted to change them. So you have problems with canon because of this. causing problems. So, but there's still a lot of good information in here that I like and use, recognizing that there are problems from time to time. And then you get oddball outliers of information, like Villains of Alternus. You can comb through here, recognizing that it is a kid's story, very much the script of a Huff and Puff property that was also ripped off by McDonald's. And so the story itself is, I tend to just treat the story as this was a movie produced by Starplay in setting for 11, 12-year-olds for that young market. And but there is some set, but despite this fact that the story is a little cheesy, there's details in here that you can comb through and pull back into the settings that are interesting. Especially, this is the cover for Captive Planet. This is the actual artwork from Clyde Caldwell, lacking the book cover title. I just like it better than the without the words on it. So the Captive Planet, EverQuest, Endless Quest book, same as the Villains of Alternus stuff. Now there's another Star Frontiers Endless Quest book, but it's completely divorced. It has no relationship, none at all, to the setting. The only thing it has in common with Star Frontier setting is that the protagonist in the story is human, and there are humans in Star Frontiers. It practically has more in common with Star Wars, because there are humans in Star Wars, right? Then you get into the house magazines produced by TSR Inc. that had content for Star Frontiers, which was back in the day was considered optional. What was in the magazines was always considered optional. What you have here, you have the Ares magazine archive. This is the Polyhedron archive with content, and then the Dragon magazine, Star Frontiers content. And these PDFs are out there floating around the internet. You can find them. And if you're having troubles finding them, chances are there's a friendly fellow Star Frontiersman who will share them with you. If you can't, if you're having trouble, but honestly, you should be able to Google them and find them on the net. They're out there. And then you get other outlier of canon information. This is produced by WotC, actually produced by WotC. New Heroic Aliens. This is when D20 Future had Star Frontiers content, and Darren Drader added new content. So you get, exploding nanites in the Sathar when they reach zero stamina. The nanites cause them to explode, and anybody within so many meters is covered in gore and blood. And I'm like, that's just such a cool idea. I just was totally enamored by that. I'm like, I'm so adding that to my setting. And then he included in here, this is a Sathar Thruster Kazara class ship. Class is on there twice. That's a mistake. But this is very much a Nighthawk's deck plan. So this is interesting. It kind of looks like a Sathar ship. It's a little squatter. It's a little different. It's interesting. I'm going to say that. And there's another deck plan. This is the Sathar Stealth Cruiser Marza class. Now, I don't like calling it a cruiser because cruisers are much bigger ships. They're much heavier. They're in that hull size 14 range. But this very much is built on the Sathar scout ship design. This looks very much like the Sathar scout ship that was in Face of the Enemy. And so it's an interesting design. I think it's worth using. I just don't like calling it a cruiser. But so this would be some of the most latest canon, although you could actually consider optional, same as the magazines. And one more outlier of content. This is not really official, but this was a Mass Confusion Star Frontiers competition module. These exist. They're floating around. You can find them on eBay. You can find a scan of them on the internet. How do we treat stuff as canon? Well, as alluded to by the OGGM in his fight over canon. What's canon? Back in the day, Gary said it very plainly. Look, whatever you do in your game is your game. Change things, make rulings, modify stuff. I mean, it's your game. There's no gaming police out there. So that's on one hand. On the other, I've been a little bit of a source of championing what's canon, what I think is canon, because of my role as an editor for the fan magazines, unofficially with the Star Frontiersman and officially with the Frontier Explorer, that I've tried to have all of this content in my head and remember it all. I'm not always perfect on it. And I forget, oh yeah, I forgot about that, because there's a lot, but I try to be mindful of it, that this is all the content that we ever got and may ever get for Star Frontiers, aside from the fanzine content, which then becomes quite luminous, right? But I try to treat this as all content, but it doesn't all agree. The single biggest cause of disagreement is Zeb's Guide. So the way I handle it is degrees of canonicity, starting with the rule books. That I treat the rule books like they are, if I could borrow a metaphor from religion, I treat these like they're the Gospels. Or if you don't come from a Christian tradition, maybe as like the books of Moses, then the modules I would treat like they're the prophets or the epistles. Okay. And right through the referee screen and its content. So these would be a secondary degree of canonicity, because you may not have bought that module, so you didn't have it, so you didn't consult it, or you still don't have it because you haven't managed to download it as a PDF off the internet. And these were all available. Optical scans of them were available before 2018, and most of them were available in a digitally reformatted format done by Bill Logan before 2018. And then, of course, so these are a second degree of canonicity. I then go to the magazine content, the Aries, the Paul. This would be more of a third degree of canonicity. So primacy goes to the rules. Secondary, level of canonicity goes to the modules. Third to the magazines. These were always considered optional, and I recognize that. But I do like to treat them as canon. Then you would get into, here's a special case. At SciCon, SciCon 1, you had the interview of Lawrence Schick, the original author with Zeb Cook of Star Frontiers. And he endorsed for SciCon, the Cameron class shuttle as canon. Official. Now, he didn't really have the authority to do that because he's not Wizards of the Coast. There's a successor in interest to TSR Inc. Having bought them out, they own the IP. But I just thought this was cool, this Cameron class shuttle. There's a lot of stats, civilian versus military. You got different models, Mark 1, through a Mark 11 here. So you've got standard, cargo, liner, jumbo, travel, uh, one with weapons, and then transport. So these would be the military only. These would be the civilian ones up here. And, they did a nice poster of it for the con. I just thought this was fabulous. And it was awesome that Lawrence Schick endorsed this as official. And so I like to endorse it as official. I accept this as canon, even though technically you could say no. So I lump that in with the magazines. Now, the problem children are the Janus module, seen here. This has a feel. Janus does not exist in the Star Frontier setting. It could easily exist. You just pick a star system and say that's where Janus is, but it has a feel like it was written by somebody who knew more about Travelers than they knew about Star Frontiers. Yes, they have classic Star Frontiers elements in there, but the writing of it, the setup, the background story, just feels more like a Traveler module to me than a Star Frontiers module. So I put it in a special category. If somebody's using material, setting material from it, I'm okay with that. I treat it as a special case. A step above 2001, 2010, which I don't really treat as canon, but I will use hardware from those modules, like the deck plan of the Discovery, which I think is cool. They also have the lunar excursion vehicle, the lunar moon buggy in 2001 Space Odyssey Star Frontiers module. So it's good hardware. Why not use it, right? The last degree of canonicity, problem child for canonicity, is Zebulon's Guide. And again, that's because Kim Eastland was determined to change Star Frontiers and take it in a different direction than it had been. And then this product that, it says very plainly on it, this is the digitally remastered cover for it. But it says very plainly on the original, Volume 1. And then there were no other volumes. And he said in his interview that he had envisioned like about 13 volumes of this book, so that, you would just, it'd be like the little black books in Traveler. You have to collect them all. And, so this was a half-baked, rush to publication, second edition, and it's completely incomplete. And there are a lot of problems with it because it was seeking to change Star Frontiers from what it had been. That said, I give it the lowest level of canonicity. If it disagrees with something with a higher degree of canonicity, then I ignore that. And I also tend to ignore the plague planets. I know why they were included. It's a special topic. And I just, they were included because Kim Eastland wanted to take Star Frontiers in a Gamma World direction. And so he needed those plague planets for that purpose, that helped with that goal. I tend to ignore the plague planets because I got a whole number, but again, it's a whole nother video. But, all the material, extra material that we get in here on the Megacorps, that's not in the Nighthawks rules or in the terrorists and spies article that was in Dragon magazine, I accept that. Extra information on cadres that's in here that's not in other sources, I accept that. Timeline details that don't contradict stuff from the modules, I accept that. And I try to roll with it. I try to harmonize this with everything that came before, because there's some good material in here that people comb through and use. And so I go ahead and use some of it. Some of it I completely ignored. So that's the levels of canonicity. Now, the fan magazines are kind of like going back to that religious scripture metaphor. They're kind of like the commentaries, when a theologian writes a commentary about the Bible, or rabbis they've written commentary about the Torah, that sort of thing. So that's how I treat it. There's value in the fan magazines and the fan content. You just have to be a little bit more careful with it. And but I think by and large, most of it's really good material. Obviously, when you've got 3 or 4 fans writing a system brief for True Ain Star, things are going to be different from brief to brief. Those can be problematic. But I feel like most of the fan content's pretty good material. The equipment, the creatures, starships, most of the starships, I don't have flagged in my head, at the back of my head, all right, this starship here is a problem. I don't have much of that. Well, 1 or 2 created by a certain individual, I think, are slightly overpowered, but for the most part, most of it's good. And you just have to look at it as a game master and go, yeah, you can buy that. No, you can't buy that. Oh, yes, I'm using this creature, type of thing. So that's how I treat Canonicity. That fan content is commentaries. The actual rules themselves are the Gospels. The modules are the epistles. And then secondary after the modules comes the fan magazines. But I try to harmonize and bring everything in together into a harmonic whole, is my view of Canonicity, recognizing that there will be degrees, and anything in Zeb's guide that creates a problem, right out. It's just the way that's got to go for harmony within the setting. So if it's creating a problem, we toss it out. We just don't let Zebs create a problem. Okay, it's going to misbehave. It's that redhead. It's that one cousin always gets in trouble. We're not going to let him spoil the family reunion. That's my take on Canonicity. Is there should be degrees of Canonicity, and as much as I can, I try to embrace all the content, recognizing some things have problems, but it's easy to spot those problems, those contradictions, and mostly it's just ignore 2001, 2010, ignore Janus, and ignore Zebs when it causes a problem. Otherwise, everything is pretty much in. And then the fan creations, I mean, in part, that's why we do Fanzine Friday, just to review them, just talk about the content. This is really good content. This planetary brief is good. It's thorough. It does ignore a few pieces of. I'm aware of it ignoring a few pieces of Canon content that's out there, but that's not a big deal. It is a brief that you can. I give it those kind of recommendations. So this is Tom from Star Frontiers Gamer talking about Canonicity. And again, there is no Canon police. There's no Star Frontiers. There's no Star Law gonna knock on your door. You're playing it wrong. Play it any way you like, and rewrite the setting to suit yourself. I mean, I know some players will only accept Alpha Dawn and Nighthawks as canon. They will not accept anything Zeb's Guide as canon. They completely ignore anything from Zeb's Guide. And that's completely valid. That is completely valid. So this is Tom for Star Frontiers Gamer. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks to my subscribers. You guys are great. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the like, subscribe, and bell icon. Help me build the channel. And until then, I will see you in the frontier.